I'm told this is Saturday, October something, 2013, and I apologize a priori for not having shaved. It's the weekend, but even were it not the weekend, I would not have shaved because I've just finished doing a lot of work. I just finished the longest piece I've written in many, many, many months. It's 10,000 words. It's an introduction, probably the last introduction I'll ever write to a certain book of mine called Ellison Wonderland. When I say the last introduction to it, this is going through its 6th edition. It was a book that I did in 1961 with early stories, and my friend Josh Olson has done an afterword for it. It is Josh Olson who is holding this camera, and it took me a couple of weeks to write this, 10,000 words. It's called Don't Look Behind You, and I'm going to show you next. Josh may come in close on it. This is one of the signature plates for the book. You'll notice Harlan Ellison, Ellison Wonderland, as if it were graffiti. This will be done by, in the United Kingdom, by Pete Crowther of PS Publishing. And it's the 6th time this book has been published, but it's going to be one of my third act books. I've got a bunch of books coming out, and I suppose I would be egregious were I not to hustle my own shit. And so if you'll put up with it for a moment, I will hustle a little shit. We're doing another bunch of downloads of my screenplays, and this one is Brain Movies Volume 5. And if you'll notice, the cover is set up like an issue of TV Guide, and all of the shows, most of them are shows that I have written or that have been published in the Brain Movies series. And this one down here, The Dark Forces, was a 2-hour-long movie that I wrote about the supernatural. And I pointed out because people are going to say, well, gee, he's reminiscent of Doctor Strange. Well, yeah, there are flavors of Doctor Strange in it, but when I wrote it, Doctor Strange had not yet gone into his own comic. He had been done in the old Marvel comics before they were Marvel comics, but he hadn't been brought back yet. And just about the time that they were bringing him back as part of a duo, and was it Amazing Tales to Astonish? One of those. He was paired with, I think, Iron Man. I did The Dark Forces. It owes more to Lost Horizon than Doc Strange, but it's about a guy who goes to the far high places to find out the secret of life. Did I ever tell you that gag? Oh, it's based on a great gag. There's a great story told about a man who has everything: wife, occupation, gravitas, reputation, dignity, and all, and loses it all. And here's somebody talk about the great secret. What is the secret of life? And so he begins searching for it, and he goes everywhere to find it. He goes to Africa and talks to juju and voodoo men about the secret of life, and they all keep referring him onward, and he crosses the Kalahari, and he goes to New Orleans, where he talks to black magic voodoo masters, and they all talk about the secret of life. And everywhere he hears the legend of the one man who knows the secret of life, and he lives 100 million miles beyond Lhasa in Tibet, in the high Karakoram, far above Tibet. And so this guy has nothing left, dragging himself, a bum now, not even an alcoholic, not even well enough to be an alcoholic, drags himself across 4 continents, begging his way in rags and tatters, across Tibet, across China, up Everest, all the way to the top, and half dead, frostbitten, 4 fingers gone on each hand, his face a mass of nothing but wrinkles and shrubbery, manages somehow, with a clearing of the wind, finds the cave. and goes into the cave, and there in the dim opalescent light sits the weazened old yellow wise man, sitting 1.5 feet above the dais. And he crawls toward him, and in what's left of his voice he rasps out, "Are you the one who can tell me the secret of life?" And the old man looks down at him and says, "Yes, my son, I know the secret of life, and I can tell you." And he says, "What is the secret of life?" And the old man looks and says, "Life is a fountain." The guy, beyond bereft, he isn't even slack-jawed. He has lost everything: his wife, his home, his life, his reputation, his youth. Everything has crawled across the face of the planet to come to this moment of truth. Life is a fountain? And the old man looks down at him and says, "Life isn't a fountain." Josh has recovered, and that is one of the great gags of all time. And it is the basis for the Dark Forces. It is a guy going and look for the secret of life. Well, that's one book. Second book I want to point out to you is called Honorable Whoredom at a Penny a Word. And this is a book of my well, they were published originally in magazines like Trapped and True Men and the Adam Bedside Reader, Crime and Justice. They were published in the 50s and 60s, and they are hard-boiled. And I guess they are not a sequel, but an offshoot of Miriam Linna's wonderful Kicks books, Pulling a Train and Getting in the Wind. And these are stories I wrote for a penny a word when I was first starting. 1950s, 1960s, got booted out of Ohio State University after punching a professor in the throat who told me I had no talent and would never sell a word. And I went to New York and I sold, I think, 1955, and I sold 2 stories. In 1955 and 1956, I sold 100 stories. And the career has been going for 60-some years since. And right at the start, I sent every single published story to that college professor. His name was Shed at Ohio State University. And after the first couple of hundred, I stopped sending them because I've had 1,700 stories published. The first few novels that were published, anytime I got an award, or National Book Award or something like that, or from the Writers Guild, I would have it laminated and I would send it to them. And in my off hours, I would have dreams of the drawer in which Shed would shove this crap, and then the drawer would become a niche, and then the niche would get too big, and there would have to be a hutch, and the hutch would expand and would become, at some point, a little addition to his house, and then finally it would crash in and kill him. And none of that ever happened, but I know that Shed always got them because nothing ever came back to me. Nothing was ever returned to me. And the offshoot of that, and the kicker to that story, you may find amusing. Many years later, I got it was before faxes. No, it was before the internet, but after faxes. I got a letter from some young woman who worked at a Borders or a Barnes & Noble in some place in the Middle West, Michigan, Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania. And she said, "A peculiar thing happened last night. I was working the desk at the bookstore, and a man came in and picked up a couple of books, and I was sitting there and reading one of your books. And as I was checking him out, he gave me his credit card, and he said, 'How is that guy? Does he write any well?' And she said, oh, he's wonderful, he's wonderful. And she lauded me, and I was very grateful for that. It was humbling but pleasant. And he said, let me look at it. And he picked up the book, and he looked at it, and he flipped pages, and he read a page or two, and then he slammed the book down, face down, steepled it, signed the check for the books he had bought, and stormed out, mumbling to himself, it wasn't until later, and she knew the story about Ohio State University. It wasn't until later that she was reading idly the chits, and it said William Shedd. It was Dr. Shedd. So I guess if you wait long enough, folks, you become a golden-maned icon of pop culture, or you wind up with a YouTube channel, and people everywhere, except in the Maldives. We don't have the Maldives yet. I'm waiting. We're in Ulaanbaatar, but we're not in the Maldives. You wait in, you become either a golden-maned icon of pop culture, or they give you a big turnip watch, or Dr. Shedd gets punched in the throat again.